Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with Daily Mirror columnist Kevin Maguire and writer and broadcaster Angela Epstein. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what is on some of those front pages. Well, once again, the growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza leads the Express with a plea from Sir Bob Geldof, the man behind Live Aid 40 years ago. He says, feed the children of Gaza and their tormented, terrified, broken and panicked mothers. The Guardian focuses on one Gazan mother and her starving child. We have faced hunger before, but never like this. Strikes by resident doctors starting this week will hit cancer patients, that's according to the Eye, with thousands of appointments set to be delayed. The head of the NHS tells The Times that the strikers should be hit where it hurts, in the pocket, by limiting their chances of working overtime. With fears growing about a summer of unrest over the migrant issues that Britain is facing, The Telegraph reports that police do not feel prepared and may have to divert officers from other duties to respond to any trouble. The Sun, meanwhile, describes what it calls a four-star fiasco, as a smart hotel is taken over to house asylum seekers. And the Mail claims that many migrants are using the money that they're given when they come to the UK to spend on betting. The inquest into the death of the former England cricketer Graham Thorpe is on the front of the Metro after his wife gave evidence that he'd asked her to help him die after suffering mental health problems and losing his job. The Financial Times says the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch is planning to revive the country by modelling herself on the Argentine leader Javier Milei and cutting state spending and government bureaucracy. And with the England Lionesses through to the final of Euro 2025 against Spain, the Star leads with the prospect of a bank holiday if they win. And the Mirror leads with a final tribute to rock legend Ozzy Osbourne, who died yesterday, picturing him with his granddaughter. And welcome to Kevin Maguire and Angela Epstein. Thank you both so much for being with us. Lots of different sorts of stories there. Let's start with one that's leading both The Guardian and The Express. The Express, very powerful picture, but let's start with The Guardian that focuses on a specific story of a deeply malnourished child. And Angela, if I can start with you. This on the day that 100 aid agencies have issued a statement together saying that Gaza is on the brink of mass starvation.
I mean, it is horrific, grotesque. There aren't enough words in the English language to try and quantify the suffering. That's unequivocal. I think that on that point we are all agreed. However, you know, we have to remember that this conflict started as a direct result of the atrocities perpetrated by Hamas on October 7th, and there are hostages starving in the tunnels of Gaza as well. So this needs to stop. That's the unequivocal point at which we've reached. There seem to be different conflicting narratives because obviously we're hearing terrible stories from doctors, from aid workers. Equally, Israel is saying that they've got 950 trucks waiting at the Gaza border. The UN is saying that we can't get a secure, safe passage in order to distribute the aid. So the thing is a little bit unlike what Bob Geldof is saying, and he's obviously summoning the ghosts of Band-Aid, which was almost 40 years ago now, wasn't it? With a terrible famine in Ethiopia. This is a man-made famine. Hamas is a proscribed terrorist organisation. They started this. They have used the people of Gaza mercilessly as pawns. They're secreted under schools, hospitals. And we've now got a situation in which we've got this madly complex landscape in which aid is there and it can't get to the people who need it. And I know war is horrible and terrible, and innocent people are the collateral damage. It's happened in perpetuity. It's happened throughout the history of time. And this idea that people are being shot when they're trying to get aid from the very aid posts that have been set up by Israel and America to stop aid getting into the hands of Hamas. All of these narratives are playing out here, but ultimately this has to stop. Give the hostages back, lay down their arms and end the conflict, because otherwise this horror is going to continue.
It's a man and woman, it's a people-made famine, but it's made by Israel in this case, which is why all the aid agencies, the UN, government, including our own around the world, are saying you've got to allow the aid in because it's been choked. And it's Israel who is killing the people. There's more than 1,000 being killed, trying to get food, trying to get help. You look at these pictures on the front of The Guardian, they're incredibly painful, but you've got to look at them. There's a 15-year-old boy totally malnourished. There's a 7-month-old boy who's also malnourished. Family can't afford milk for him, baby milk. The mother was so weak herself she couldn't produce breast milk to feed him. The grandmother holding, I think it's the grandmother if I'm reading the story correct, only had one piece of pitta to eat, is suffering dizzy spells herself. And what I find kind of, the Guardian's done that incredibly well, including eyewitness reports from inside Gaza itself, because of course the world's journalists aren't allowed into Gaza by the Israeli forces, but so you have to rely on people already there. But if you look at the Express, now the Express is a paper that has been unflinching in its support of Israel for decades. Yesterday or earlier today, it had the pictures of the child, the suffering child, and now again the second day in a row it's splashed on us. And I think this is where patience has run out with Israel. And of course the hostages should be released.
But they're never mentioned.
Ceasefires have released the hostages rather than rescue missions. And of course they should never have been taken.
They shouldn't.
The pogrom by Hamas was horrific. But this is a collective punishment against a people. That is a war crime.
The punishment has to be equivocal in those who are responsible. You know, the starving, emaciated hostages that we saw were released from Hamas. If Hamas hadn't done that, but we are where we are. Remember, Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005. There was every opportunity to set up a Palestinian state.
In fairness, within Israel, there's a lot of pressure on Netanyahu from the families of hostages as well to end this.
And there's a lot of mistrust with UNRWA because so many Hamas card-carrying employees are involved with that.
The former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert, has talked about war crimes and what's happening.
At any rate, we're just going to have to move on. But I mean, what we're getting from all the aid organisations is this idea that it's sort of, they've reached the end of, the aid system is breaking down. But let's move on to a story which is making the papers in lots of different ways. Let's start with the Daily Telegraph. Kevin, this time, let's start with you. Their headline, police not ready for summer of unrest. I mean, obviously the horrible, shadow of the violence that we saw last summer. Officers forced to choose between local duties and tackling protests over migrants. What are they saying here specifically?
Yeah, this is Tiff Lynch, who's the head of the Police Federation in England and Wales, saying, look, we're just not ready now. Of course, it was a criticism after the riots. It took the police a while to catch up. And he's just pointed out that they're overstretched now. So if there was a repeat, because we're coming up to the anniversary of what happened in Southport, when both horror at the murder of the 3 young girls and then the lies that went around on the net that it was by an asylum seeker who'd come over in a small boat, triggered those protests around parts of the United Kingdom. And Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister's spoken about fears it could happen again. Angela Rayner in a cabinet session spoke about it. Nigel Farage has talked about civil breakdown, although he has a role in inciting that. And of course, it's dangerous, volatile times.
Angela, before coming to you, if I can just bring up the Times, because I mean it's one story, but there's different aspects to it. There they talk about the Epping protests, and of course today the Chief Constable of Essex Police rejected the accusation by Nigel Farage that he had brought in pro-migration protesters. This, though, is different. Again, focusing on the Epping protests, but here mentioning some far-right groups here in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk that those who are at the extreme ends of politics feast on vulnerable situations, mobilise the troops, and that's what's going to happen here. There's this neo-Nazis push for anti-migrant protests at hotels, and as Kevin said, we saw last summer what happened with Southport as a result of misinformation. Yeah. I think where the vacuum is here is, where is our Prime Minister? People have very real concerns about uncontrolled immigration. And he needs to come forward and say, no violence. There's never any justification for violence. But I hear you that seeing people put up in 4-star hotels, which is on the front of one of the other papers.
Yeah, I think it's the Sun. We're coming to that.
Yes, it's a hotel which boasts superb views over London. Yeah. And people see that.
If anyone's been near that hotel or stayed in that hotel, the Daily Mirror used to put people in that hotel. It's a Britannia. you would not want to stay in that
As a
hotel for very long. I think that's why they're probably opening it to and going to get more money. Look,
but the issue is that there are very real concerns, and this is noise and fear and horror. But the Prime Minister almost needs to go there on a soapbox and say, I hear you, this is what we need to do, violence is not the answer.
But the Times story is there is a group called Homeland, which is a far-right fascist organisation. It broke away from another
patriotic alternative.
There's a whole, the right festers with these groups, is actually organising behind some of the protests. Now, some people will be well-meaning, and they have genuine concerns, they get caught up in it. Then other times you have agitators who go in and they actually organise the protests and they incite people to attack the police, attack the staff in the hotels, attack anybody who gets in their way, and of course attack the people in those hotels themselves.
And social media fuels it. The Epping Says No is a Facebook group with the Times reports it's got more than 1,500 members. That's just the call, and then they share and share.
For a long time in Britain, we've heard from anti-terrorism officers the two big terror threats of Islamist and Britain's far right, very violent, poisonous.
We're going to have to leave it there, but let me just pull up the other two front pages. The Sun that we talked about, the Britannia Hotel, Britannia International there, and then front page of the Mail, another immigration-related story: asylum seekers gambling away taxpayers' cash, saying they're using the cards that are loaded with money. So. Going to have to leave it there for now, but coming up on the press preview, the head of the NHS tells The Times that the strikers should be hit where it hurts, in the pocket.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash.
Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes. Sky News, the full story first. I'm Greg Milam and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
This is insane. This was a bustling residential area.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
How difficult is this to police tonight? Off the scale.
I'm Dan Whitehead, Sky News' West of England and Wales correspondent.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
The founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach.
This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me in the studio, Kevin Maguire and Angela Epstein. Kevin, let me start with you. A front page of the Times. Hit striking doctors in the pocket, says the chief of the NHS.
Yeah.
This is obviously about the strike that, as things stand, is due to start on Friday morning.
That's right, 5 days. England, junior doctors, as were now resident doctors, hospital doctors, really. But Jim Mackay is saying, let's hit them. Now, of course, if you go on strike, you don't get paid. But he's saying, let's not give them overtime afterwards. But the problem is they only give them overtime if you've got staff shortages and you want to clear a backlog. So you can damage the NHS and the patients you want to protect if you deny these doctors overtime subsequently.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, I think they've reached a point of disdain now. They've had above inflation pay rises over the last 3 years, nudging 30%, you know, and I think there comes to a point where the whole point of being a doctor is do no harm. That's the oath that you take. And if patients are going to be compromised, nobody else can do a doctor's job. That's the problem. I actually don't think doctors should be allowed to strike. They should be like the police and the military. And we're actually seeing on the front of the eye, I heard that, Kevin, unless you were just clearing your throat.
No. I think it's their right to strike. Every worker should have the right to strike.
Yeah.
But I think they haven't got public support the way
they haven't.
2022 and 2023.
And if you look at the front of the eye, thousands of cancer appointments are going to be delayed with up to 50,000 resident doctors walking out tomorrow. If you've been waiting, you've got, God forbid you should have cancer, that appointment red-ringed on your calendar, and you see the person who's going to be, you know, treating you on the picket line. I think they've reached a point that they do need to be rewarded well for the years and years of study. I understand that. But maybe give them a concession in terms of the student fees they've got to pay back or the cost of the professional exams. This is bonkers.
Just a final point to you, Kevin. Do you think it's right that they've run out of public sympathy?
I understand why. It's because of the nudging 30% over 3 years, and they got a bigger rise this year than anyone else in the NHS. So consultants above them and nurses, porters, everyone below them are thinking, hang on, what are you playing at?
The highest rise in the public sector,
and it's actually quite an important personal relationship with a doctor, which I think, and they're jeopardising that, but let's see what happens.
Right, time for one final story, a good news story, because, you know, we haven't had too many of those. Yay. It's the Euros, look at that, lovely picture, and now we know that in the final, it's obviously England against Spain, because Spain just beat Germany 1-0, and so it's an England-Spain final in Basel. Tell me honestly, both of you, have you been following
I'm kind of absorbing it by osmosis if I'm being sort of correct about it. I actually, don't lynch me, I actually prefer men's football. Sorry. But I love the skill, I love the focus, I love the determination, great role models for women. Interesting story on the front of the Star. You know, Keir Starmer made a lot of noise about there should be a bank holiday if they won the 2023 World Cup final. Now he's Prime Minister.
When they were beaten by Spain.
Now all gone quiet over there, hasn't it?
I know, but he always doing opposition bank holidays.
You've got 30 seconds, Kevin. Tell us.
No, I watched the semi down the pub last night. It was great.
The goal was amazing.
It was. No, look, I just love the fact they never give up. It's you know, it's fantastic, the spirit. But Spain are a good team.
It's wonderful that we're winning things. It's just the absolute enthusiasm. It raises the temperature in the country for all the right reasons.
Look, and most people are behind them. The idiots online, the racists, they're a minority. A vile, poisonous,
they're just sitting in their armchairs doing nothing, aren't they?
Well, good luck to them. We're going to have to leave it there. Kevin, Angela, thank you. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, Israel tells Sky News there's no truth in claims from more than 100 aid agencies of mass starvation in Gaza.